We all have some story to tell. At least, we all have something to jot in a notebook or to detail around the dinner table. Life brings memories and embarrassments, accomplishments and tangents, and in my case, they all end up in the Notes app on my phone. Welcome to Something to Note, a podcast dedicated to these scribbles of inspiration and facts for humanization. I'm your host, Ben Geezer. Each show, we attempt to get some story, set of experiences, or new outlooks on life off our chests, all centered around some central theme or topic. Think a private journal, but for the public to see, or hear. In the end, we hope to spark something for yourself to start taking note of. In this episode of Something to Note, I wanted to talk about a more somber topic. A topic that has a sense of taboo, but is brought up enough times by peers, coworkers, and traumatic Disney movies starring yellow labs to potentially spark a groan from audiences. At least, it might spark a groan by a seemingly heartless, indifferent kind. In other words, people living their own lives. My English teacher in the 11th grade told us he was tired of the dead pet story. He said everyone had one, and he didn't want to read about any more cats and dogs making a final trip to the vet. They all felt the same to him. Therefore, he challenged us during the personal essay section of the class to think about how we can write about our experience uniquely. Throughout my high school and college careers, I attempted to write different individualized stories. Stuff I hoped, at least, people hadn't heard before but could relate to. Then my dog died. I know, a bit of a downer. Never really a light-hearted way to say that fact. Now, this is not an attempt to get your pity or your undivided attention, though as a human person who enjoys talking about himself, I can't say that I wouldn't complain if you must. But this is an attempt to tackle why pet owners feel drawn to put their grief to the page for an essay prompt. Grief so universal it can feel cliché. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Catron, but now I must tell my dead pet story. It's only fair. After all, I've always listened to others share theirs, and I didn't care. It wasn't my pet anyways. Who cares? But now, I get it. They care about their stories because they cared about their pet. And I cared about mine, even when I struggled to show my emotions. So, without further ado, here's my story, Farmer Mentality. Take it away. I still struggle with saying Zeitz was obese rather than is obese. Pets are a key icebreaker in a lot of small talk moments, and having an overweight, diabetic, one-eyed miniature dachshund with arthritis, cataracts, and an outie belly button, which all disqualified him of a show dog quality, was kind of the ultimate conversation opener. Other kids had Old Yeller or Marley and Me. I had Ripley's Believe It or Not. Concerning but adorable. He was my entry pass into the exchanges of cats in the wrong place photos and stories of dogs eating the one thing they were not supposed to. For example, Zeitz, who was a little more than ankle height and wide enough to set magazines and plastic cups on like a portable coffee table, once jumped up on our Thanksgiving dinner spread to begin lapping up the juices of an oven-roasted turkey. Sure, a tabby sleeping in a bathroom sink is cute, or a lab catching a bunny is horrific. But a dog defying the limits of little legs, gravity, and veterinarian warnings is frankly inspiring. We got Zeitz when I was in elementary school. With him being our first family dog, it took a lot of convincing by my siblings and me to prove we were responsible enough to take care of him. A combination of trips to the library to research dog breeds, and the mistake of our parents looking at a photo of him with his breeder gave us all the evidence we needed to take him home. I say we did a good job, giving him walks around the block and teaching him how to sit and stay, but as we got older, these walks around the block started including shortcuts, and the list of tricks only extended the shake and a consistent reminder of what stay meant. He just really wanted food and knew he could get it. We love Zeitz, especially when he snuggled up with us when watching TV, when we were sick, or whenever we were feeling down. He was a source of comfort for all of us, but I worry that we may have simply gotten too comfortable with being comfortable. Though I don't think Zeitz complained about the treats and blankets, especially as he got grayer and grayer. Zeitz died a little over a year ago at the age of 12. We can't really say it was much of a surprise based on the list of health problems contained in his reverse hourglass body. If doggy autopsies are a thing, which is probably one of the saddest jobs in the world, I wouldn't blame the veterinary expert for simply marking all of the above. Still, it didn't make breaking the news any easier. So, on get-to-know-me days in class and work, or during moments of reconnecting with longtime friends, I feel obligated to bring up other talking points and stories to avoid the dilemma of bringing everyone down with my pup who passed away. Often, my intention for the stories I share is to be funny. One of which I brought up instead of my once go-to Zeets banter was the apparent farmer mentality that runs in my family. Now, this is not another way of saying my parents didn't like Zeets. While they may have considered posting an ad for adoption a few times whenever he chewed, peeled, or peed on our carpet and furniture, they still developed quite a bond. For instance, Zeets' favorite toy was a green rubber ball. Wherever Zeets went, the ball went, including my parents' bed he slept in with them at night. It was his teddy bear and my dad's obstruction to the view of his wife. They loved each other. Instead, the farmer mentality originates in the generations farther up the family tree, specifically those who actually worked in agriculture. My great-grandparents would have scoffed at the idea of sharing a bed with an animal. They were farmers and rented a piece of land for many years. My mom has told stories of playing with dozens of kittens that always ended up on the property one way or another. Then, they would disappear one way or another. My Uncle Matt said my great-grandpa used to stuff injured and unwanted stray kittens in a bag and then proceed to smack them at 2 by 4 o'clock. My mom said he was exaggerating. Instead, they likely drowned the cats. I admit, probably not the greatest pickup lines when meeting or reconnecting with people, but there is some sort of gallows humor element to these comments from my relatives that made me want to share the same stunned reactions. They are so horrible and shocking that the absurdity is all you focus on. You may even laugh at their acknowledgement, building a barrier to the realities that occurred, the underlying guilt present. You can avoid it all. Yet, on the day my great-grandma met Zeets for the first time, when he gave her a little kiss, she admitted, "He's pretty cute." Zeets' ball is now with me. Perhaps I felt the need to keep it as sort of a continued responsibility I once had. A responsibility I feel guilty about failing. It's the guilt of wondering but really knowing what I could have done more. More walks around the block. More attempts to play with him whenever he wanted. More moments to give him the attention he cried about. Sometimes to an annoying degree. He was my dog. I was his owner. I know I loved him. And he loved me. And I know I did enough. But there could have been more. I know it. Others probably would have done more. At least they might have joked less about his weight and health issues and actually made additional efforts to help him. My parents would probably emphasize the many trips to the vet, optional surgeries, and pet insurance they all paid for, the long life he lived. But I should have done more. I can see the green ball whenever I want, but I don't really see the need to get it out too often. So, it rests in the covered box on top of my bookshelf, where I keep my First Communion rosary and my grandpa's old business card, waiting to be unpacked. That's going to do it for this episode of Something to Note. Just remember, it might be something big, it might be something brief, but there's always something to note in our everyday lives. Why not share it? I'm Ben Geezer. Thanks for listening.